So today I have something interesting, very very interesting, but today we'll be conducting it a little different too. So usually I start with some principle and then we do the discussion, but today it's gonna be a sandwich approach. First I'll have some discussion, understand your worldview, then I'll discuss something, and then I'll answer questions, right? And here I wanna see how you look at the world. So we're going to start with some big questions of life, pretty big. So the first question is, what is, and now I don't want you to think about just your life, right? Because for us individuals, what's important, what matters can differ a lot. But now I want you to think bigger. And if you were to talk about the whole humanity, what do you think is the most important thing? The most important thing that we should care about, that we should work towards on a scale of humanity. So I want to hear your worldviews on that. And I'll first start with this question and then I'll ask the follow-up questions. Okay, so let me hear some answers. Yeah. Who would like to discuss? Who would like to share? So Akhil.
Yeah.
Yeah, Akhil, hi.
Yeah. So I think for the world right now, peace is the most important thing. Without peace,
Now, I don't even want right now, in general, like for humanity. So you can think on a larger scale, from previous 1,000 years to next 1,000 years, anything. Or in general, what are the most important elements, universal elements for humanity? So that is the question.
I think aspiration to grow more and more, and
Aspiration to?
aspiration to expand and grow.
Aspiration
Human
to
aspirations. Human aspirations to
human
develop.
aspirations to develop, to grow towards progress, right? Okay. So
That is the most important thing. Without an aspiration, there is no meaning.
Without aspirations, there is no meaning. All right. Great.
And for that, you need a peace and an infrastructure in the world. If there is a peaceful world, then only you can try to aspire. If there is too much conflict and war, you can't progress. So peace is a minimum requirement, is what I feel.
Okay, minimum requirements. So the larger goal is aspirations, and for that you need peace and infrastructure. Okay. But I want to ask you again, and here people will gradually see the direction that I'm taking it, but I'm going to keep questioning you. Why human aspirations? Like, what's your reason behind saying that?
So I think because we have a faculty of intelligence, so you cannot stop it. You will always be thinking what is next. So initially you will try to fulfill your basic requirements of life. That is roti kapda mata. And then one day you will feel that is not enough. So there is always an internal aspiration to know more, to gather more, or to, expand yourself.
So you mean to say we are naturally designed that way, that we are not supposed to be satisfied with any status quo. Wherever we reach, there is more,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I don't think that will never end. The satisfaction will never come with the material prosperity. That aspiration is inherent, is what I feel.
But I would be doing these online meetings with you all regularly for some time. If you wish to attend these meetings live on Zoom, save the details. If you need reminders, we also send invitations to you personally on email and Telegram app. To get reminders, do the following. In that case, say if the aspiration is inherent, it's already in us. If we collectively think about problems like what should we care about, like if let's say for example a government or a world government or a society must think about questions like where do we put our efforts, our creativity, our money, where do we put in, like what is the highest goal? How would you put it towards aspirations? Because that's what I'm talking about here. When it's up to us to decide and optimize the society, what do you think is the most important thing? Because aspirations, so like you said, is already written inside. Nobody can take it away from us. So we don't now.
I get it. So the government or the society should look in this direction where an individual is getting enough infrastructure to blossom. Minimum requirements are met, and there is a facility for him to look beyond the sustainability of survival. That kind of infrastructure is what we should aim towards.
Okay, that's an interesting answer, which is so provide an infrastructure where
Right.
each individual have the opportunity to blossom.
Blossom, right.
Okay. And
So many, for example, poverty is too extreme, then there is no question of aspiration or anything else apart from survival. Right? So if we try to eradicate as much as possible, I know imbalance will always be there, but leveling up can be done very much. We can improve from what we are as a country.
all right, good. Now I'm going to press further. Okay. So the next part is, see, you said, so in this, you said we must focus on infrastructure so that the end goal is what? So the individual can blossom. So I want to ask you, what do you mean by that? Individual blossoming, what exactly does that mean?
Like basically, it will end up to existential questions: who am I? Where am I coming from? What is the goal of life? Or what is the purpose of life? Even. So that will eventually lead to what I call a spirituality and existential questions.
But do you need infrastructure for that? You can do that just sitting in your home. Even if somebody can in jungle answer a lot many questions. So
see, if you can do it, but if minimum survival is not met, how you can do it?
yeah.
And even if the survival is met, it's not necessary that he will be doing it. He will be comparing himself with someone else who is much more richer, and he will be in
so when you say
when you are in a social construct that you have to earn this much. Even if you are earning 10 lakh per year, your goal will be to earn 20 lakh. So such kind of things will always be hindering. So doesn't mean that if your survival is met, you will come to those questions. You will not come.
You won't, because your primary needs are not fulfilled. You won't go to the higher. Yeah, according to you, and your higher needs you. So this is actually correlates with the Maslow needs hierarchy, which is you say you first fulfill your basic needs and then you move on to the higher needs, and it's somewhere along. So for you, the human blossoming would be first the basic needs are fulfilled and then you go to the higher questions, right? The existential questions, and that can again only happen when the infrastructure is in place, when there is peace, so an individual can do those things, right? Okay, interesting. And this is actually a good answer, of course, but I will be adding a few more things and giving a perspective, but yeah, good answer. All right, now let me go to next one on my list, Vimla. Hello, Vimla.
Hi, Shridhar. I've been following your Facebook videos, and it's the first time I'm participating here. And for me, humanity is beyond the human beings. It is living in a combination with nature and also all the living beings. It's just beyond a human being. So everyone who is living should have that basic access or reach towards your basic needs like food, shelter, clothing, and they all should be treated with love, compassion, and respect. I think, even a tree wants a respect, even a human wants a respect, even a dog wants a respect. So humanity is a combination of all of these things, is what my definition is all about.
So for you, the end goal of all of this for every living being would be basic needs and then respect. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So this is what they get. That is the highest thing which we should work towards. So this is similar to what he said, and like now we are getting along those lines. Okay. Thanks for and okay. By the way, one thing here. When you talk about those higher needs, individual respect, and again the basic needs, in the end, when you look at the society, if you think about society and look forward, what is the best picture that comes to your mind? Again, I'm asking it from a slightly different angle. It's a similar question, but a different angle. So, do you think happiness is the biggest goal, respect is the biggest goal, needs are the most important? Because what I'm trying to talk about here is this question will push you to do is it will push you to understand what's the most important, and so that rest of your actions can fall in line. So that's what I'm asking you. Among those,
it's needs and respect. We all think happiness, peace are there, but they are unmeasurable, untangible stuff. And dancing would make my daughter happy, but I would feel she should read so that she can aspire different. So according to me, needs, respect, they are the fundamental things. I mean, you cannot compromise on them.
Okay, so then in that case, what does respect do? Like if I get respect, then what happens?
Your self-confidence, your self-belief, everything is intact. Because I think a lot of negative things are happening because you don't have that self-belief, self-confidence,
Okay.
all of those things. You want to do something external to get that boost, to get that, adrenaline rush and all. So
Okay, so now I have
this is in
self-confidence.
fact.
So I have now self-confidence, I have self-belief, then what? What next? What does that lead to?
Then you have a time to think what best you can utilize with your capabilities. What else can you do? So you have that minute to think over it.
Okay, and I'll do
Otherwise, you're
that, and
actually
that.
fighting for your needs, fighting for your, respect, where, your self-image, self-confidence rebuilds.
So I'll be able to figure that out. Now I'm doing the right things. Then what?
Yeah, then you have time to do something else which is beyond your stuff. I mean,
Okay, and I do that. Then what?
plans. It can be anything, talking to your maid, treating her with respect. It can be like, cooking a chapati and giving it to a dog, or it can be going beyond to orphanage. It can be also thinking how you can reuse the paper and the clothes to someone else. I mean, so once these basic things are neat, you have the time to explore where you want to do.
And what's the purpose of that exploration? Why do we want to explore?
To be useful, to be purposeful in this life, to be useful to someone else.
Useful to, again, if you don't answer this for yourself, then for the other person you have not answered it either. So useful towards what? Use means like whatever you're talking about. See, why am I asking why? Because the pattern here is that whatever you say seems to lead to something else, and we haven't reached a point where you do something for its own sake. Right? So whenever you say, okay, this is I'm doing, then there is some purpose, and then so even doing something useful, then what is that purpose? Then is we come back to that circle, right?
Everyone understands in the human form that they have to be born, they have to be a child, they have to be adult, they have to marry, they have to have a kid, and then they grow old and all. So this is one cycle which everyone understands. There is also one cycle which everyone evolves, is like, how am I useful? Am I able to be independent? How can I be useful to a larger cause or a society, or how can be helpful to the something beyond me and my family? So I think it stops after it comes to that me and my family, like society or nature or universe, whatever we call that, out of circle. And I feel at the end, all this meditation, salvations, everything comes, but I don't think we are all at there yet.
Okay, so interesting. I'm glad you answered the questions. So now I'll go to the next one. Yeah, thanks for participating. Yeah, the next would be Pavni. Hi, Pavni.
Yes. Hello. Hi.
Hi, Pavni. Welcome
Hi.
back.
I hope you will not say my answer is like the first word answer, but for me, it is definitely empathy. I think empathy will make a huge difference. It can be in every way, and change. I think change is the only constant. So one should constantly learn, update, and upgrade themselves. It can be society as well. For example, here in the Europe, it is very socialistic, and in the US, it's very capitalistic. There are some benefits, but I also see some cons, like, no matter what, it is not really thriving. I think there should be best of both worlds. So I think everybody should constantly, I think change is the only constant. I think
But the question is, Pavni, whether it's change or whether it's that again empathy, do we want that for its own sake? So like, do you think imagine a word where people are just empathetic, right? But then question would be, why though? Like what does empathy lead to, and what does change ultimately lead to? Change for its own sake would not make sense, right? I'm just changing, but towards what? So
changing for the better.
Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, for the better world. For example, we have the constitution that is written in 1947, but nobody has updated or changed anything about it.
That's the question. What is a better world? That is the main question, because what does better world look like? Like what happens in the better world? What is that goal?
Okay, for me, if a woman, I mean, you see New Zealand, there are no COVID cases. If a woman leader is there in the world, it would make a huge difference.
No, COVID is a recent problem. I'm talking about general. 1,000 years back and 1,000 years from now, the answer would be similar. So that's the question. What is the general answer for humanity, mankind, humankind, or even other living beings also? What does a better world look like?
I say change when you should have the knowledge of unlearning some things and then learning some things and putting them in your life. For me, that's what I constantly look for. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, but your answer has the same limitation as many others, which is where you have to distinguish between two things, which is one is that are we doing something towards something, like is it a tool or is it the end itself? So many times
It is a tool. Okay, but you're asking for the end, is it?
yeah. I'm asking for the end, which you do for its own sake. So, for example, a small thing could be you go to the grocery store, right, to get some chocolate, right? Now, you may really love the chocolate, but if I ask you what's the favorite part, oh, my favorite thing is going to the grocery store. No, it isn't. The final goal was to actually get the chocolate in your mouth and enjoy it. Going to the grocery store was the means. So the same way, if you're changing or even if you're doing something else, this is the means to that final goal. And then you can say, no, chocolate, enjoying that chocolate is a goal in itself. Now, I don't want to enjoy chocolate for something else as such, because it's an experience in itself, right? So that's what I mean. For the larger humanity, what are the goals that are in and of themselves independent, that are not tools towards something else? That's the question.
Like eating a chocolate. Okay, fine.
That is good. Yeah. So so maybe the next time the governments should put this in top of their manifesto. I'll just distribute chocolate throughout the population, and that's.
No, the top of their manifesto should be that they should change a lot of things. Yeah, I think addressing the suffering for me, empathy would bring in a lot of change. Yeah, when someone's problem is addressed, that would. I know. I actually I did not understand the question very well. Like I don't know the end. I don't want to die. For me, the end is like death. So, yeah.
Okay, Pavni. Thanks for sharing. Now I'll go to Janil.
Hi, Shridhar.
Hi, Janil.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned universal elements for humanity, right? So I would say developing a compassionate attitude, that would, in general, if we see humanity lacks human nature, we all have become very selfish and self-centered. So if we have compassion and love within us, that would definitely, that is one thing which will fulfill all these other goals that people have been talking about right now.
And what are so for you, if you have compassion, if everybody tomorrow starts to become compassionate, what happens? How does the society look like? That's again the question. What do you want to see through compassion?
I think it's going to be a very healthy society, because people are going to care for each other. There's going to be growth that is going to be like equal. It's not going to be only me. It's going to be all of us together it's going to be like a universal growth for the society.
And that comes back to the question, growth towards what? And see, if you don't, why am I pushing on this question? Because if you don't know what you're working towards, what is the highest goal and what is the final end, then you can get stuck in the means. And so many of the mistakes, whether by individuals or larger groups, are made because they have no idea what is the final goal post, right? So this is why I'm pushing on this question so much. So
I still would stick to compassion, because I personally think it's very essential for any relationship at the macro level or the micro level.
So even in your sentence, you made this. So it is essential for a relationship. So it says that compassion is a tool towards something. And now when you talk about the relationship, my again question is that for what? What does that good relationship look like? So again, compassion in your statement became a tool. And I'm talking about the end. So this is what you need to think about, right?
Right.
Okay. You can keep thinking. I'll go to the next one. Yeah.
Thank you.
So next would be Kevika.
Okay, hi, Shridhar.
Yeah.
You've asked a very difficult question.
Yes.
Because there's no one answer for that, I feel. And I don't want to superimpose my thoughts on the entire humanity. but I would say, from my perspective, speaking about myself, it would be if I could somehow just take responsibility for my own self. If every one of us would start doing that, I'm not defining a limit or of how much one can do, but just uh, one could grow into taking responsibility for their own self so that they're not dependent on others. Because I don't want to find myself in a situation where where I'm dependent on somebody else. But even in that situation, can I really uh, be independent in my thinking, in my actions, in what I do, in how I behave? So if people would take responsibility for their own selves, I think that would be my.
So the question would be, if everybody on earth tomorrow again learned to be responsible, take their own responsibility, for you, what is that picture? Where is it that responsibility taking us? What would the world look like?
Nowhere. I mean, you can go wherever you want to. In any case, people are going to do what they want to do and go where they want to go. At least along the way, uh, you know,
So for you, that independence of people, just that freedom part, that people do whatever they want to,
no,
and they take
freedom is very difficult. It's a very subjective thing to say. But I'm just saying that whatever I'm doing at the moment, if I can just be completely involved and take responsibility for that, that action. I don't know how it'll look in the world, but I think people will then start not stepping over other people's boundaries.
Okay, you can actually, and for the people who are gonna answer in future, I'm again ask the same question at a different angle. If tomorrow we said, okay, you are God, you have unlimited power, unlimited money, you can influence society, design the society however you want to, right? And so 100 years from now, 100 years from now, how is an individual living in the society that you think of? Like, what's happening in that society, and what is the utopia for you, right? In the sense, the best case scenario that you can think of. So that tells us where, what are we really working towards? So would you say that then I would spend all that money just teaching people to be independent? And because again, when you look at the word itself, from morning to evening, what are people doing in that word? What does life look like? So that is the question.
So my answer would only be this, that it's impossible to know.
Okay.
I mean, people can just do whatever they like, and so people have, even if you think 1,000 years earlier or even now. So it's just evolving. I see a critical mass of people having a particular thought, and society moving towards that only. So, and then there is another critical mass of people who are reformers, who think differently. Then society moves towards in that direction. So there is no one such thing. That I'm not qualified to answer this question, I guess.
All right, fair enough. Okay, Kavika, thank you. Next would be Maitri.
Yeah. Hello, sir.
Hi, Maitri.
My answer would be the goal for humanity is that the means is self-realization.
Okay, towards what does that mean? Self-realization? You mean self-actualization? You mean like an individual utilizing their potential? Is that what you mean?
Yes. So human birth itself is very difficult to get if you see it from the karma theory point of view. So I feel if one has that realization, so it could come through knowledge or some event that has happened in your life that makes you introspect कि हम क्यों है यहाँ पे और क्या कर रहे हैं.
Okay.
Like for example, you are born in a particular family. Why not in a different family? So all those are existential questions again. So here, every day, how do we live our lives is very important. ऐसा नहीं कि एक बार कुछ और कर रहे और कल कुछ और. So like I have also been introspecting, but the change we desire इतना आसानी से नहीं आ पाता है. Like for example, I get angry. Suppose I have a short temper. I am conscious. I am aware of it. कि okay, I have a very very bad temper. But to nullify it, it's not that easy. Even if we realize, that doesn't happen.
No, that is, see, this is about our nature, right? It's difficult to change, no doubt about that. But my question is, why change at all? And if yes, change towards what? So your initial answer meant that we must change towards individual self-actualization, right? That's what you mean?
Yes. Like tomorrow if we die,
yeah,
तो आप खुश रहोगे जो भी आपने किया है, like in the your lifespan till now, whatever you have done. Suppose I'm taking a hypothetical situation. अगर मैं कल मर जाऊं तो मेरे जिंदगी का अर्थ क्या होगा? That is on me only.
So you're saying कि knowing the answer to that question is the ultimate thing, or is that what you mean? Is
that's the journey. एकदम से सबको नहीं आता है वो.
No, but again the question still becomes, if I give you again unlimited resources, unlimited money, and if you could change the world towards what? Like what is the next action that you would take, and what is the direction of your change would be?
See, money cannot do that, sir. That has to come from an individual only.
So you would say that if you had unlimited power, you would not change anything about the world?
No, if I have power, definitely it's a resource that you can channelize to help.
Yeah, and that's the question. Help towards what?
Help towards, like, if you look, if you take a topic like poverty, रोज का खाना खाने के लिए लोगों के पास पैसे नहीं है. Half of them are dying because they're not having the basic food.
So your first goal would be poverty
and education. Mainly it is education.
And why did you choose those? Why poverty? Why education?
Education, as a student, I feel इंडिया में होलिस्टिक एजुकेशन नहीं मिलता है स्कूल्स में.
Okay. No, that's fair. I think Pavni wants to really say something. So let me just hear her out, because she really wants to say something here.
Thank you for unmuting me. Equality, right? That's what you wanted to get to.
I'm not going to say my answer right now. I'm just asking.
So, what I meant is equality. Like, if I have money, then I would distribute and see how it can be prospective to, like, and also like equally. Yeah, that's what I think. If everybody is given the opportunity, then it might lead. You might think that only I will change, but if everybody is given equal opportunity, then we can see in every different perspective, what is the better change that could be.
Okay, so your final would be that equality. That seems like one of the highest ideals, right?
Yes.
That's what you're saying. And equality for what? What will that lead to?
I think equality with basic rights. What I mean is basic right, including it can be money or access to anything, or education and rights, everything in every way.
Okay, all right. I take that. Now I'll go to Anita Alaguraj.
I'm Anita from Chennai. Without wasting much time, I'll go. I feel that this kind of luxury, what we are right now doing, this introspection and this awareness of where we want to go or what we are trying to do with our life, this luxury is not even in the first place available to all the citizens of the world. Okay, there are many survival issues, like basic survival issues like food, security, food, shelter, and health. That is even not available to many people. Only when that is satisfied, then comes like what will be available for the rest of the citizens. So if there is anything that I would make sure, it is this thing, making available food, shelter, and security for all the citizens through education and job opportunities. These are the two arenas which can take us to a place where everybody can be ensured of having the basic things. And once this basic level is achieved for all the citizens of the world, then we could think about higher luxuries like, the self-realization or self-actualization, and thinking about equality and all those stuff. At our level, where now I have that luxury of having this self, what I want to do with my life, having satisfied the basic needs. What I want at this level is equality. In that, I would call it more of acceptance. As human beings, not all of us will be having the same level of mental maturity. So we, as human beings, need to be accepting everyone in whatever level of wisdom or intellectual progression that we have made. Like, I am not what I was 5 years ago. I should be able to be compassionately accepting someone who is below my level, and I should also have an open mind to accept someone who is wiser than me and should be aiming to go to that place. And so this is what.
Well, you laid out actually a lot of points there. There was compassion, there was empathy, there was first, of course, basic security, food, and then all those other things. So, there are multiple elements there. Okay, thanks for sharing. Now I'm going to take the last one for this question, and I'll go to Yash.
As per all last best said about the happiness एक ultimate goal होना चाहिए life का. Happiness is the ultimate goal of life. तो वो कैसे होगा अगर हमारे पास unlimited resources हैं? Unlimited resources तो हम क्या करेंगे? जो हमारा जो अभी जो बच्चा लोग हैं, schools हैं, colleges हैं, तो वहाँ पे proper ideology provide करेंगे कि जो कि proper मतलब jobs वगैरह and other opportunities की तरफ जाएगा और एक healthy और secure society create करने में मदद करेगा in towards our humans and other animals also.
Okay, so
providing them a basic ideology to change the things towards humanity.
And see, that's the thing. Again, ideology here would be the tool, and the end goal would be like you said, healthy happiness
and secure society.
Healthy and secure society, and you do say that the final goal is happiness there. That's you apply everything towards that, right? That's what you mean. Okay.
And we have to provide this material. Okay.
No.
We have to provide this material to our childrens to move toward. मतलब future में वो लोग ऐसा कर पाएंगे अगर हम उन्हें एक basic ideology अभी provide करेंगे तो एक idea thought level पे change होगा ये.
Okay. Again, it's important, and now thanks for sharing, and now I'm going to come to my view on this. If you find these videos helpful, you can support me by donating something, anything. Go to www.shridharlifeschool.com/donate. Those who have been contributing, I'm truly grateful for your support. Please continue to do so. So, first of all, some people said that the question cannot be answered. Some people feel like there are a lot of things, and it's just, and truly this is one of the very difficult questions, but all the more it's very, very important, because a fundamental principle in our life, or just managing things in whether in our life or society, is how do you prioritize your attention, your efforts, your money, your determination, even your creativity, problem solving, even your empathy, compassion, towards what? Where are we applying this towards? We must know some answer there. So like in the first session, I discussed two things. Remember, I said, I don't know how many people remember those two things. The first one was that what we want in life is inherently first functional existence in the physical world, and the second was a good experience. Now, those two answers have a lot to say about where I'm about to take the discussion. So, a functional existence in the physical world, which means, like a lot of people mentioned, survival, basic food security, these are the things that you want in and of themselves. So, for example, when you're hungry and you eat a lunch, and somebody asks you, why are you doing this? Then you can say, I'm going to survive so that I can live. And then why do you want to live? Then ultimately you end up with the question where you assume that we want life for itself, and that ultimately there is no purpose to life other than living the life, right? So that's how we come down to the absolute fundamental, that living the life itself is an assumption that we want it for itself. Now, you being born and living every day is not a tool for something else. And if you think that you're mistaken, if you think that you living is a tool towards going to heaven or something, or I don't know, if you have any agenda which is related to living, then it's most probably mistaken, and guaranteed to be mistaken, because life is something we assume that it is something which is just written in our DNA, that yes, we are supposed to live, and then ultimately spread life, and again replicate and continue life itself. So this is something that we want in and of itself. So what that says is, even whether it's education, whether it's compassion, empathy, ultimately so many things which comes down to just living. So that is one fundamental. The other one is which comes after it, which is once you're alive. Now that we know I'm breathing, I have something to do in this world, what is the next thing that you want in and of itself? And here we are assuming that you have basic functional existence in the physical world, which means good. Then it comes down to the higher needs, which is the experience part. Now, human experience or conscious experience, whether it's the experience for animals, whether it's the experience for us, we want to optimize that experience in and of itself. And what's the proof of that? How can I make that claim? The claim here is we can start with suffering. So I don't know how many people here are aware of this author named Yuval Noah Harari. Some of you might have heard of the author. So there's a line I'm going to quote from him. How do you know if something is real? How do you know? He says the answer is, does it suffer? Can it suffer? So suffering is as real as it gets. So if you think about this, if I take you towards very close to fire and your hand starts burning, the only goal in and of itself would be to avoid that suffering. You don't want that suffering. And that suffering could be in any other direction. It could be physical, and then it could be mental. So one of the primary needs for our experience is to first avoid avoidable miseries, avoidable suffering, and especially extreme suffering. So whether it's violence, whether it's murder, whether it's anything. So it's so basic to human experience that when you're going through suffering, everything else becomes secondary. So think about this. When people go through sickness and illness for a long period of time, all they want is one thing: when can I get out of this? So I don't remember the author of this quote. Again, the quote was, a healthy man wants 1,000 things, but an a sick man wants only one thing, which is to get healthy, right? So the idea there again is suffering for us. So reduction of suffering or elimination of suffering then becomes naturally the most important thing for optimizing experience. And then once you take care of that, once you take care of suffering, whether it's physical or mental, then you can go on to the positive sides, whether it's self-actualization, whether it's joy, elation, love, and all of those emotions. So you can think of then human experience or even animal experience on this spectrum, which is on one hand, there is extreme suffering where life is just hell. And it is so hell that you would rather die than live like that. Like, it's so bad, right? And there are people who have been through conditions like that and still do, in this world too. And then on that spectrum, if you keep going, on the other end, there is an experience where you really enjoy life. You would not want to lose life at all. If somebody asked you, you would rather enhance your life double, triple times because you're enjoying it so much. And every morning you wake up, you want to do something again. this is the pinnacle of experience. And in that pinnacle, where at the height of that happiness, of course there is going to be diversity. Like for some people, they would enjoy working really hard and doing something for other people. Some people would enjoy just traveling and eating a lot of food. Then some people would say that for me, just sitting with my kids and with my family is the most important thing. And in that positive zone, of course there are going to be a buffet of options. So nobody can, when you look at society, and now I'm going to start to answer my own questions that I was asking you. Like if I was given unlimited resources, unlimited power, what would I do with it? So my first goal would be that how do we have that physical world where people can survive? And the next would be how can we move the maximum number of people maximum towards the positive side, which is the well-being side. So suffering versus well-being, the spectrum. So this is a spectrum that I would like to move the humanity towards. Please, so and this is an approach which is also called utilitarianism. In that the greatest good is what? Maximum well-being for maximum number of people, right? So now what we know is that at least we know what the direction is. If we have to optimize society, if we have to take it forward, how are we going to do it? Now to do it, there are going to be different methods, which I'm going to not get into right now in this, but I'm still going to address a little bit. So the idea there is that the direction is clear, then you can basically prioritize then your actions, and you can run experiments, you can observe, you can take feedback from the world. Okay, for example, again, you think, if you talk on a governmental sense, that now, like, I don't know how many people are aware of this, again, there is a lot of talk about universal basic income. And even in our previous elections, there was this talk from the Congress side. Again, this is not a political commentary, just talking about that basic principle, that the poorest of all, they must be given direct income. Now, some people may agree with it, some people may disagree. Some people may say freebies are a very bad idea, it can make people lazy. And some people say, no, it's the right, it can actually help them get over their basic needs and they can move on to their higher experiences. So we can have multiple opinions on this, but how do we test this? And now there are already tests being done and research is being done on this in many countries, in many parts of the world, where they are giving, for example, 10,000 per year or 12,000 per year, some basic amount to people completely for free, no questions asked, and see what society looks like. And so far what I've heard is that many experiments are actually running successfully. Some people have actually found out that actually works, that people don't become lazy, people actually go on to do productive work, and it's actually making the society better. But again, this is not the time to decide on that conclusion. This is the time about the approach. The approach was what? That, okay, I have, let's say, 1,000 crore rupees. Let me run this experiment and see if I give it to the poorest people a certain amount, what does the society look like? Because our goal is clear, that what do we want? We first want that survival, then we want to reduce misery, right? Reducing misery and going towards well-being. So that must be clear. Now, after I say it, to many people it may seem very obvious, like of course that is one of the goals. But I'll point out some examples where people make complete mistakes and disastrous mistakes and completely lose the sight of this. And this is what will bring us to the first principle, not exactly the first principle, I mean one of the most important principle and the approach, the larger philosophy that I subscribe to, and I want you all to learn about this, is humanism. And humanism ultimately also extends to other living beings too, but the name was coined that way, so that is the term humanism. Now, one of the key principles and the fundamental principle, which is what I want you to know today, is that ultimately well-being and desires of all sentient creatures, this supersedes all other non-sentient elements. And I'm going to explain that, of course, but I just want to repeat the principle. And if somebody wants to write this down, they can write it too. Well-being and desires of sentient creatures involves humans and other animals. It supersedes, it is above all other non-sentient elements. And what are the non-sentient elements? Fictitious entities and material things, which I'm going to tell you with some examples, right? Okay, so I'll give you 3 to 4 examples which will drive the point home. Okay, so many times once you start, so a small example would be, let's create a now there is a religion, right? Let's again assume there's a religion, and I can take an example of Christianity also. And if there is, again, please understand that whenever I am talking about these things, I'm talking about ideas, not about people who are following it. Because again, we are all mix of ideas. So if we can talk about a certain idea and say it's a good or bad one, and we don't have to talk about people who are actually with those ideas, because people can change, but ideas can be critically analyzed, right? So in why were religions kind of created in the first place? Religions came about in our life to ultimately make sure that we could, let's say, tame humans, in the sense, because essentially we were wild animals, right? You could do anything you want. One man sleeping with another's wife. Now in religions, they came about, they say, you know what, this is not okay. Then they said about honesty, like anybody could lie, honesty is good, like stealing is bad, murder is bad, like some of the tenets written in religions. Now why did they, and they repeatedly drive those points home. So there's a tremendous value that they have provided to the world, and religions have actually led to a lot of well-being, because if they were not there at all, then if we were not trained in those value systems, who knows how people would be behaving on a regular basis. Like, I'm not saying that it would have been complete disaster, but there could have been some a lot of variability there and a lot of risk and danger there without that constant training. But then there is a twist, which is then you can reach to a point where so in religions there was a thing called, like in Christianity, there is a thing called homosexuality is not accepted, and I think it's not accepted in Islam religion also, and in Hinduism I don't think there is much around that. Now specifically for that, they thought this is unnatural, this is not okay, this could bring a lot of problems. But in recent years, in past few decades, what we found out was that the homosexuality, or in fact many other ideas that they thought about, they're actually not that harmful for the world at all. Not that it's completely fine, because for example, ultimately they can go on to live completely functional lives. They are normal human beings. They just have different preferences, right? They're just like us with slightly different preferences. Now when you ask the question, now if you stop it with those ideas, are you helping or hurting the society? So what happened was that the tool, which was the idea to make the society better, it became more important than the humans itself. Now they are ready to stone those humans to death to make sure that the tool stays in place, that the idea becomes supreme. And that's where problems start. Whenever your tool, or whenever anything material that you created towards the betterment of the society, that supersedes the actual goal, which was human experience, then the problem starts, right? Now I can give you another example. So you are on the road, somebody hit your car, right? Or it was just a small accident. Now in that case, you could immediately run into a big fight, and you could end up really abusing the person, beating up the person, because we see examples like that. Now in that moment, if you think about what's happening is that you are what are you prioritizing here? On one hand, there is this car, which is immaterial, which is a material thing which cannot experience anything. On the other hand, there is a human who can experience something, and if you abuse them, if you beat them up, what have you done to the society for that moment? So in that moment, what did you prioritize? You prioritized cars' well-being over human well-being. You thought, okay, you know what, this time a shiny car is very, very important than this stranger I don't care about, right? And you can fight with that person. So again, that tells your values, that what are you prioritizing here? Because, and think about this, what was the goal of that, having that shiny car? So that you could have a good experience. So for that good experience, you had a tool called car. Now that car has become so important for you that anybody touches it, you are ready to fight with them, and you are ready to ruin somebody else's experience for it. So another example where you can prioritize this. Yet another example. So in so many Indian societies, we have this culture right? And at least in the older societies, even my mom had to face that. When she got married, it was a very strict rule in the house that you have to wear a sari. A suit is not allowed. Forget jeans and t-shirts. So for years, my mom had, of course, when in summers you don't want to wear a sari, you want to wear a suit. But you would not, because my dadi was she was raised that way. Obviously, she okay, this is not the way to live your life. We are cultured beings, and in our families, in our culture, so suit is just not okay. You have to wear a sari. Now think about this. Now wearing that outfit, sari, why did it come in the first place? You thought, okay, first of all, it covers the body. Then you feel, okay, it looks good. It represents our culture. Now the question is, what do we need culture for? We needed culture so that ultimately we can feel good about our lives. We can see, okay, you know what, we're in this together. We are following something, right? So what was the purpose of culture? Ultimately, the purpose of culture was some form of happiness, some form of internal satisfaction. Now that sari again becomes so important that now even if your daughter-in-law is crying and suffering on an everyday basis, for you the sari has become more important. For you the culture has become more important. And what did you prioritize in that case? You prioritize sari and culture because you think that culture makes for a better society. For what? For at least not for your daughter-in-law. And you prioritize again that. So this is another example. And when people get stuck in these things, they don't even realize. When you push them, why are you doing this? Oh, I thought this would make for a good family. I thought this would make for a good society. I thought this is how things are done. But then you push them for it, they'll say, oh, it makes for a good society. But good society, what does that mean? It means happy people. But you are making somebody unhappy right now. What are you doing? So this is how you lose track of what you are working towards, right? I'm going to give yet another example so that the concept becomes completely clear. So a company, right? A company comes into being, they say, you know what, we're going to work hard to make this world a better place. We're going to develop new products and services. We're going to be very creative. And ultimately, this company will leave the world a better place. Now that same company gets so fanatic about their mission that they're like, you know what, now everybody has to come on Sundays also. You cannot take a break, and I can't pay you salary on time because that money has to be used for marketing, so you won't get salaries on time. And when the employees don't give a report, they shout at them, they abuse them, because in their mind they're doing the right thing. Because in their mind, when they're abusing, they're thinking, you know what, I'm creating discipline in the company so that they'll do something good which will make the world a better place. Now what did you do here? Here you made the goals of the company more important than the goals of the individuals. And what is company? Company is a fictitious thing. Company does not exist. Again, that same question, if you have to ask what's real and what's not real, real is something that can suffer. Can a company suffer? No, it can't. You can write off a company in the books, company won't care. Who would care? People would care. But in that moment, you made the goals of company so high that you are ready to burn out your employees for it, right? Who are real human beings, who can really suffer, who can get stressed, who can get ill because of burnout and exhaustion, right? So you lost track. Why did I create this company in the first place? And this is how you can sometimes prioritize that too, right? And I would like to share one example from my personal life where I tried to apply it, and so that I can get to the application part. So in my life, in my childhood, I remember we used to play football. So the goal of the basic rule in football is that obviously you have to have equal players on each side. Now you go to the park and you start playing. Now we are little kids. Now some kid comes later, right? And now the teams are already there. Now there are 4 on each side. Now the 9th person comes, and which team would they go to? So some people, they became such stickler for the game that they were like, you know what, he has to stay outside, cannot be part of the game. And that kid would stay outside 2 hours or go back home not playing at all, because for them the rule of the game became more important, right? They're like, I don't care about that person's experience, whether they are happy or not. For me, the rules of the games are more important. And I was like that too early in the childhood, but I quickly learned that. And then that's when I realized, because sometimes, yes, you want your experience to be good enough, because it does affect your experience. But ultimately, in your thinking, are you constantly asking the question that the propriety, the aesthetics, the rules, the culture, the norms that I've built here, what the impact that they might have on other people? So in that case, then I started to learn that next time if a new kid came in, I would say, you know what, it's okay even if there is a misbalance, maybe we can exchange the teams in a manner that the strong players can come in the team of 4, and the people are not so strong, they can be 5, so they have larger numbers, and we can somehow manage. But at least let's make sure that the person feels included, right? It was hard to do, I had to learn it, but I learned to prioritize human experience that way. So when I said non-sentient elements in the beginning, I'll usually like to say 2 things there. First, material things like objects in the world. The second is fictitious things. Now, what are fictitious things? Company. A company is a fictitious thing. A country is a fictitious thing. Can a country suffer? No. Is country real? No. Country is in our minds. Country is on the maps. Country is because we have decided that these should be the boundaries. But country cannot suffer. Tomorrow, 2 countries can merge together, or like USSR, tomorrow the country can get into a partition, or 4 countries can join in, and then it'll be a different geographical area, right? So country is a fictitious thing. Money is a fictitious thing. Money does not, money is simply in our minds. Ultimately, you can't eat money. You can't get satisfaction with money. You use money to buy something real. So if somebody runs after money and get blinded towards money, they are making the same mistake. Like, what are you running after money for? Money again is a fictitious thing. Religion, again, a fictitious thing. So what I'm trying to tell you here is whether it's a country or a religion or a company or any group or a team, all of those are fictitious elements which are supposed to be a tool towards human well-being. And the moment you make them the more supreme things, which is, so for example, in your case, if you try to do things like, I can do whatever harm, I'm ready to kill, I'm ready to cause as much violence as I can in the name of my country, or in the name of my religion. Like, I want to ultimately make sure that, and think about this, the missionary religions in the past, and probably to some degree today also, their goal was to spread their religion throughout the world. Now, the initial idea was good, that they thought that these amazing values, they should be spread out. Right? The whole world should believe in them, the world would be a better place. But for them, they were ready to kill people. For them, they were ready to do anything, to go to any extreme. And what happened there? You made the tool towards well-being more important than well-being itself. You were ready to kill. So here, now I am talking about many large ideas, but trust me, in your own life, on everyday basis, you are doing countless things mindlessly without realizing what you are prioritizing. And so many times, and now I can give you a small mistake that parents sometimes make, right? For parents, school, let's say, doing well in school becomes such an important thing that they forget about the overall development of the child. What are we doing this for? Right? So doing the homework on time, submitting it on time, keeping up with the class, and going well through the system, that in itself becomes such a big goal that they forget that even if the child is suffering, they're like, no, the problem is with the child, not with the system. I don't care what you do, you have to match it up. And then they don't question, okay, why did we want a good education in the first place? To have a happy, healthy child, and you're making the same mistake. So what I want from you now is to really question your own life, your own self, your own actions, and then actually think, am I prioritizing human experience, or am I prioritizing something immaterial or something fictitious, right? And as long as you're doing it, you're causing overall more harm than damage, as long as you're prioritizing something immaterial or fictitious. And the task that I'm going to be giving you guys, whoever is going to finish it, for new people, I must mention again that each week I give you a task where you take the principle and actually apply it. And those who fill the form and do the activity, we have a separate meeting on Thursdays where we discuss how they were able to apply it. So if you want to attend that meeting, I'll be sharing that form soon. Please do the activity and then fill that form. And in this form, my goal is to do what? The homework is to do what? The homework is to sit down, reflect, and actually apply this next time. And a good sense there would be, the moment you're causing suffering to somebody else, please stop. Like the moment you're shouting at somebody else, the moment you are forcing somebody, you're trying to dominate somebody or abusing somebody or in any way just causing them suffering, that is the moment to stop and reflect. what am I prioritizing here? What is more important to me right now? Is it really more important than the other person's experience? Like, can I defend that? Is it a thing that can actually lead to long-term happiness? Is it so important? So, for example, in this COVID situation, if your child wants to go out without wearing a mask, and if you scold them, even if you hold them and lock them in a room, society would say, and even anybody would say, maybe that's justified because it's life and death. So if you cause that child suffering for 2 hours to teach them a lesson or just tell them, okay, this is not okay, it's life and death, we would say it makes sense because it's life and death. But if you do the same thing for something else, for example, what the child has to wear, how the child is sitting in the house, or how the child is doing some day-to-day activities which you don't like, or maybe they are not keeping their room clean, it could be anything. If you're doing that same thing, causing them a lot of suffering for that, then you start to question, what am I prioritizing here? Am I prioritizing cleanliness over human experience? What did I want cleanliness for? Cleanliness was a tool for something else. So this is how you start to question every behavior of yours which causes others some suffering. And then you say, and more often than not, I would say a good life for yourself and a good society comes into place where all humans can prioritize removing other people's suffering and then their own suffering over other things. So if you have that ethic as an individual, if the society has that ethic, if the country has that ethic, if the religions have that ethic, if every fictitious group also remembers that ethic, that we have to minimize the suffering of sentient beings and we have to work towards well-being, that's how the world becomes a better place gradually, right? So if you learn this, you've probably learned one of the fundamentals of humanism, and this, I think, is the best society for long-term well-being of humanity. And so now I have said a lot. I'm going to take some questions, and if you have something to offer, and I would also like if you can share some examples where you weren't able to do it, or you learned to do it, or even right now, if you can think of something where you can apply it, you can share it right now also. You can ask questions too. Yeah, Kevika.
Hi. So, doesn't it really go deeper than that? Because what you're saying is right, that if you are prioritizing a material thing over a human life, um, so every time the loss is the human life loses, the material thing wins. I understand that, but that has a deeper implication. That why do I, in the first place, learn to put material things before human life?
Oh,
that I would. Sorry, go.
Yeah. So the question is that why did it happen in the first place, right? Why was it there? Okay. For that there is a simple and complicated answer, which is we are designed in a manner which is not optimized for all the goals of the universe and the humanity, which is, it's like we are born with certain needs, certain intellectual capabilities, and we do our problem solving best to our ability. So when you do something, when you say something, when you take an action, when you take a decision, you take it to the best of your knowledge. So if in my knowledge, I genuinely believe that, okay, sometimes you're doing just short-term thinking, which is, okay, it seems like the most important thing, which is if you eat junk food, it's very satisfying, but you don't have the knowledge that it can lead to long-term health issues, then you would continue to eat that. People used to have cigarettes also. Now we know it's harmful. So sometimes it's simply lack of knowledge that what the implications are of your actions, and you can continue to do unwise actions.
Yeah, but my point is, it's like you said, the belief. And the belief is put in you by the society, because no child is born with any belief.
Oh, no. So again, there's a huge mistake there. First of all, yes, you may say that child may not be born with a mistake, but child is not a blank slate at all. That's a big mistake which has been there for centuries, but it is completely refuted by the actual psychological science. A child is born with tremendous capabilities, inborn capabilities, and they just use those capabilities ultimately to interact with the environment. And of course, they learn a lot from the environment. But we are born with certain tendencies. So even if you leave a child and not teach them anything, they will still continue to do some good and bad things, some wise and unwise things. You don't have to wait for somebody else.
What drives that?
Sorry?
What is the driver for that?
What is the?
What drives that in a child?
What drives that? Oh, the answer is ultimately, so the way we are wired up is the core is definitely the DNA. The DNA then wires up this brain, and it's in our inherent nature that we are born with desires and motives, which is, for example, whether it's the desire to have food, it's the desire to have sex, it's the desire to meet other people, the desire. These desires are inherent in us. This is written in our biology. So this is where it's coming from. It is not designed by other humans or the culture at all. So you can think about it like this. In animal world, there is no language. And because there is no language, as such, there is no culture. The most you can do is observe other people. But still, they have their desires and they express so many emotions. They do a lot of problem solving. Where is that coming from? Because it's wired in there. So culture is in that sense overrated. A lot of it is simply in there. And what we're doing here is trying to basically understand the implications of the ideas and aligning our goals with it. Okay, if you do this, it can lead to that outcome. If you do this, it can lead to that outcome. And how do we optimize that? So,
thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Next, I'll go to Vijay.
See, as you mentioned, it's a compound effect. You said one is materialistic to non-materialistic, which is human beings. Like you given a right example, like mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, sari things. But you started with a material, which is a sari or a rules. But that doesn't stop there. It leads to, why don't you listen to me? Why don't you do what I say? That becomes a pride thing that, mother-in-law thinks that I said this to you. It's not about society anymore or sari anymore. It's about, you're not listening what I say. I'm doing for your good. And then that's where it material to human become human to human. And then the compound effect is huge. It's nothing to do with sari anymore or society anymore. We just think that they are with society. Or we blame them, or we use that tools to satisfy our pride. I saw many situations even with myself. One time I think this, but actually I don't mean about that sari or that object. It leads to my own object, to my own pride. Why don't you do what I say? Why don't you do what I...
Yeah, and that is true. But I must say that this is actually a separate problem. I understand that. And please don't expect that any one principle would solve all the problems. That's why I'm having multiple sessions. If one principle could solve all the... So you rightly said that's a human to human problem. When two humans' goals, when they collide, right? Where do you go from there? Where two experiences collide, and that's a separate problem. I will definitely try to address it in future sessions. But today I'm talking about a clear distinction where you are prioritizing something material, something fictitious over real human suffering. So yeah, I mean, I take your point. That's a big problem, but it's a separate one. I must isolate it from this one.
Oh, thank you. But
Yeah. No, but sometimes, but even in human to human, by the way, I must mention one thing. Even in human to human, when your pride gets attached to something material or something fictitious, then again, ultimately it becomes human to human, because no sari will ultimately come and fight with me, right? Ultimately, no country can come and fight with me. Ultimately, a human who's defending that will come and fight. So in a way, it may seem like human to human, but if you really sit down with that person and you explore what is behind that, like what is making you angry, what is really making you this sensitive, and what is really making you talk like that, then you say, oh, maybe because for me the culture comes at the top, for me the nation or religion or this comes at the top. And that's where you can change the mind, where you know what, you're prioritizing this, but maybe if you change that priority, and if they successfully change their priorities, then the human to human conflict naturally comes down. So for that part which can be solved like this, we can solve it. But if there's another cause, then another principle will come in place, right? But yeah, this principle also helps.
Thank you. That's
yeah. All right. Now I'm going to go to Vindhya. Yeah.
So, Shridhar, when you were giving these examples, like in the football example and the car example, so now when you said that the rules can't be important than the human experience.
So again, yeah. Okay, I'll first listen to the question, then pretty much that's the summary, yes.
Yeah.
So, see, my doubt is, suppose you have allowed someone because you didn't want it to spoil, you prioritized human experience. But then, when such things happen, now if one person takes a call and does that, it's fine. But because you did that, if someone else also says, okay, now you changed this rule, now I want to change another rule. And it's not only about rules, it's like, where do you draw the boundaries? Like if a person is like harming you, and it's like you protect yourself, but at the same time, you can't go and do the same thing to the person, go to any extreme or anything like that. But then how do you make the other people realize, or how do you put those boundaries in place?
So let me understand the question. What you mean is that if we prioritize human experience and we let go of one rule, then anybody can take away another rule and another rule, and where is the boundary? Then there are no rules, there's complete chaos, right? And how we can't take into account, we can't please every human, right? We have to have some rules. That's what you mean? Yeah.
That, and also when it comes to human experience, when you are thinking about the other human, don't you think first we should think of our own safety, our own well-being, mental well-being, uh, and then think about, see, I believe in one thing: survive and also others along with you, with whatever resources you have, because we can't grow in exclusivity. An individual can grow if others also grow, in his environment.
No, of course. So yes, the second would be how can we prioritize other people over us, right? Like we have to first take care of us and then go on to cooperate and help others. Yeah, so I'll address both of the questions. So the first one was how to what degree do you prioritize this? See, please remember that when we talk about rules were also there to ensure what? To ensure well-being. So rules do have a purpose. We cannot do away with all of them. But so the main question that you need to ask, if a particular rule is now causing significant suffering as opposed to benefits, that's where you question. So it's not about the boundaries, because there is no answer. Ultimately in life, at least in wisdom, no one principle can give you exact black and white, right and wrong. It will always come down to balance and the judgment. But to make the right judgment, you have to be able to ask the right questions. And what is the right question here? That is this rule that I've just made, is it causing more suffering or well-being? And so many times the rules that are old, or sometimes you don't question them, and when you go at scale they don't work enough, but you don't change the rules because, oh, this is how we do things, this is how the culture is, and now they are not helpful anymore, but you continue to do them because you just have an affinity to do them. This is what you like, this is what you have faced. So it's like an example would be, in some courses, some professors, when they went through training, they heard a lot. They had very strict professors, right, when they were going to the training. So now when the new students come in, they're like, you know what, this is how things are, this is what we have faced when we were younger, now we'll treat you the same way, because that's how that's how things run here. They're not questioning that abusing a student or just being extra strict with them or unnecessarily strict with them, is it really adding to some well-being or learning, or is it just causing suffering without? They're not questioning it. So what I mean to say here is, whenever you're causing somebody suffering because of some rule or practice or culture or anything, it's important to step back and say, on the whole, is it causing more happiness, well-being, productivity versus suffering and unnecessary negative emotions and just destruction, right? And this question must be asked continuously on a regular basis with everything. Because if you lose that faculty of yours, this introspection, then you can go on and causing so much misery and pain to other people without thinking about it. And that's what happens. And that's why it needs to be talked about, right? So that was the answer to first question. And the second one was, that is definitely obvious and normal that you would prioritize your suffering. But like you also said, ultimately, it's good for us when we are good to others. So it's selfish to be altruistic. It's selfish to be compassionate. So in that sense, you will definitely take care of the needs for yourself first, for your kins, for your children, for your close relatives. That's kind of wired in us. Doesn't mean this is the most moral thing, but it's just how we are built. It's almost impossible. So like in this situation, think about this. It's a very sad state, even during the COVID times. If you try to use all your contacts to get an oxygen cylinder for your own child or your own father, we know that you're taking it away from somebody else. We know that, right? Because now they are in limited supply. We need 1,000 and we have 100. Now these 100 can be allocated somewhere. So if you help your child in that moment, of course you would. Even though you know that helping your child could lead to somebody else dying, but this is how we are built. We will prioritize ourselves, and that's understandable. And if you save your child, nobody can come in and tell you, why did you do this? Why did you not focus on others? Because we understand this, that we are, when it comes down to absolute life and death or an absolute survival, we will take care of ourselves first, and then we will think about others. And that's why even morality becomes easier when there is abundance in the environment. When there is scarcity, morality becomes very, very difficult, right? So, and it's our nature. So, to your point, definitely, there's no doubt there. But ultimately, what I'm talking about is we do live in abundant societies in the sense where the physical needs, the functional needs are kind of taken care of. Unless you're going through an illness on a day-to-day basis, we don't exactly worry about, at least a large percentage of us and most of the people who are attending this, we don't really have to worry about where will I get my next meal and will I survive tomorrow or not, will I wake up tomorrow or not. We don't have to right now worry about those things, right? So in that sense, we are able to then think about those higher questions, that now how do I design my life? How do I live a life where I can also live in an ethical, moral manner where it could be helpful to society and not at least cause suffering to others, right? At least not live in a manner which can directly cause pain to others. And by the way, that starts from your own home, right? Forget even strangers. In your own house, I gave like so many examples where you could be prioritizing something and causing a lot of pain. So that's a question to ask too. Okay, so thank you so much, and these are all the questions that I would be able to take today. One thing I do want to address here is that all of these principles, these work once you have an overall philosophy. So what we are trying to build is a system of thinking, a system of looking at the world, which in itself is synergistic, like I said in the beginning. And this is why what I want from you all is to come to these regularly, and please genuinely try to apply this and reflect. After this session, whenever you have time, try to spend at least 20 to 30 minutes just thinking about, can this be applied? Am I doing something similar to the examples that I discussed in those? And what can I change about this? And how can I? And in this way, and for this particular example, what would be helpful is we all want to live for a higher purpose. We want to know what we are here for. And one of the amazing purposes that I can leave you guys with is just to live a life where you know that your actions and your thoughts and your decisions are overall leading to maximizing well-being for the humankind and for ultimately the whole world. That is a good goal. That is an amazing goal to have, and it's exciting enough, and you can spend your whole life. You'll never achieve it, obviously, because it's an ongoing one, but it's something to strive towards, right? Maximum well-being for maximum number of people. So start with your own home and then think about society also. These videos can help you to some degree, but if your problems are really serious or painful, you should come for counseling. We now have a team of psychologists who can help you and your family live a much better life. Here are some feedbacks from our clients. If you wish to take counseling from us, go to our website page www.shridharlifeschool.com/counsel. Click on this link and fill this application form. We will get back to you soon.